I'm sure we've all heard the old adage that boxing is 80% mental. Sometimes people say 90%. This is an arbitrary figure. There's no real way of measuring how much of a mental pursuit boxing is. But I still like this saying because it gets across an important point. And that point is that boxing is a pursuit that is immensely mentally, emotionally, and spiritually taxing. And I preface this video by saying this because I feel Oleksandr Usyk has given an insight into his mindset when talking about Tyson Fury and a potential fight against him. So I'm going to be reading some quotes from Oleksandr Usyk from an article on Sky Sports, and I'll leave it linked in the description box in case you want to have a read for it for yourself. So I'm going to read these quotes, give my 2 cents, interpret them, and yeah, let's get into it. So Oleksandr Usyk says, "I need this fight and that's it. I think he needs it too. This fight is very important for both of us. All 4 belts haven't been held by one person, so both of us need this fight. I'm not afraid of Tyson Fury. This will be like any other fight. It's just a big man who has never lost against a man who has the WBC belt. Of course, it's possible to get carried away, but actually, this is a normal fight for the right to win all the belts. If a person is bigger than me, it doesn't mean they're stronger than me. If they have longer arms, doesn't mean that it will be an advantage. I've been boxing since I was 15 years old. They kept telling me that I shouldn't be boxing. They told me that I wouldn't become an Olympic champion or a world champion and that I shouldn't have switched to the heavyweight division. But these were opinions from people who couldn't do it themselves. Personally, I keep praying and move forward. I don't worry about whether I'll reach my destination. It's like a samurai. He doesn't have an aim. He has his path. I have my path too. I'm boxing for everyone who is defending our country right now and in the memory of those warriors who are no longer with us. Also for those who want to be free and who stood for their country against those who came to conquer us." End quote. Some very interesting things said by Oleksandr Usyk. Though I do think at first glance it's easy to kind of gloss over these things and take them at face value, but I think there is quite a lot of meaning behind them. Firstly, he talks about the undisputed fight. And of course, it's a very meaningful fight. It's an important fight, not just for Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury themselves, but as boxing fans. This is what we want to see in all divisions, is the undisputed fight, the consolidation of all the belts, getting one true champion. And it's always good when there's an undisputed fight between 2 fighters who are very evenly matched and opinions are split on who the winner is. Because many people in the boxing fraternity, the boxing public, they have Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk level. They struggle to put one ahead of the other. Some people have Tyson Fury ahead, other people have Oleksandr Usyk ahead, but regardless, it shows that these two, at least on paper, and what we've seen of them prior form, are very evenly matched. So, you know, what's not to love? You have a meaningful fight because all the belts are on the line between 2 guys who could arguably beat each other convincingly. So it's he talks about that. He talks about not being afraid of Tyson Fury. He says it's just a big man who has never lost before. And now, at first glance, you think, okay, he's talking about Tyson Fury, you know, a big man who has never lost before. But then he says against a man who has the WBC belt. So obviously, from a physical perspective, Tyson Fury is the big man compared to Oleksandr Usyk. And now that's crazy to think because Oleksandr Usyk himself is, you know, compared to the average Joe, he's a big man. He's like 6'3", 200 something pounds. You know, that's not a small man. But Tyson Fury's just enormous. We know that. But I just find it interesting the way you say it's just a big man who's never lost, referring to himself. Usyk is referring to himself as the big man. And now I know a lot of people don't like this kind of interpretation, but I find that interesting because it's like in Usyk's mind, he's trying to say that Tyson Fury he's just the one with the WBC belt. I am the big man. I'm bigger than Tyson Fury. And now he goes on after that to say, if a person is bigger than me, it doesn't mean that they're stronger than me. And now that kind of goes against conventional wisdom, because generally bigger people are stronger. And I'm sure that is the case. I'm sure Tyson Fury physically is stronger than Oleksandr Usyk. I don't really have any doubt about that. But we have to factor in that Oleksandr Usyk probably isn't talking about it or saying that from a physical perspective. Maybe he's talking about it from an emotional, a spiritual, a perspective of belief, self-belief. Just because you're bigger than me doesn't mean you're stronger than me. I'm the stronger guy because I believe in myself and my ability more than you could ever believe in your own. And so that's the kind of vibe I get from what Oleksandr Usyk is saying, is that physically he's the smaller man, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, he sees himself as the bigger man, the superior man, which is interesting. Though he does go on to talk about some physical advantages. He says if they have longer arms, it doesn't mean that it will be an advantage. So he is, at least in the way I'm perceiving it and the perspective that I'm getting from this, is that he's gone from talking about belief and spirituality to physicality. And I agree with that as well. If they have longer arms, it doesn't mean it would be an advantage. Because people ask me, outmatch, how much of a part does size play in boxing, in fighting? And I always say it largely depends, because you can be a big guy, you can be heavy, you can be tall, have a long reach, but it's really your application of those factors. I don't think they're advantages in and of themselves. I think it's really the intent and the application behind how you use them. And we know that Tyson Fury uses his advantages very well. His height, his reach, his weight when he has to. He knows how to use those advantages. I'm not going to dispute that. However, Oleksandr Usyk on the size spectrum he's on the other end of the spectrum. He's a small heavyweight. And people automatically see that as a disadvantage. They think, okay, Tyson Fury, he's the bigger guy and he's skilled in his own right, he wins. I think there's quite a bit more nuance to it than that, because Oleksandr Usyk, yes, is a small heavyweight, but that allows him to do certain things that the bigger heavyweights can't do, the more legitimate heavyweights, quote unquote. Because if you're a heavyweight the size of Oleksandr Usyk, you're, maybe not as strong or powerful, but you probably don't have to be, because you're even more agile, you're even quicker of hand and foot, even more elusive, you're a smaller target. We know Oleksandr Usyk has great technique and IQ, and his size allows him to use certain techniques, perform certain maneuvers that bigger heavyweights would never even dream of trying to carry out. So it's a pendulum that swings both ways, I feel, in terms of the size argument. It's really about the application. And Tyson Fury uses his size very well. He knows how to bully an opponent if he has to, and close them down and smother them, use his weight and gain an advantage that way, as well as using his skills. But Oleksandr Usyk, who has, for my money, technically Oleksandr Usyk, and from an IQ point of view, in terms of IQ, I think he's the best heavyweight. But also, he's the smallest heavyweight, but he's going to be a small target. He's going to be an elusive guy. And so, you may be able to outstrength him, but you're going to be presented with other challenges, like trying to keep up with him, trying to pin him down, trying to actually land on him. So, there's more that goes into it rather than, okay, Fury's bigger, he wins. It doesn't really work like that. And I think Oleksandr Usyk knows that. That's why, since he's moved up to heavyweight, we haven't seen him try to meet fire with fire and bulk up and try and match the power of these heavyweights. He's stuck to what he's done well, and that's move and box, use great technique, great IQ, use his quickness, his slickness, and he's had a lot of success doing that against quite a few styles at heavyweight now, it must be said. He says he's been boxing since he was 15, and people have always told him that he shouldn't be boxing, told him that he wouldn't become Olympic champion, then he wouldn't become a world champion, and then they said he shouldn't go up to heavyweight. You know, I think this happens to a lot of people in all different pursuits, where there are always going to be people on the periphery who don't understand why you're pursuing a particular goal, why you look to achieve certain things. And, you know, they're always going to say, oh, why are you going to take up boxing? You're just going to give yourself brain damage. You're just going to get beaten up, and you're going to ruin your good looks. You're going to get a flat nose, a broken nose, and whatnot. And then when you start enjoying some success, they say, oh, why are you going to bother going to the Olympic Games? There are going to be guys there that are so much more experienced than you. There's always going to be someone who can beat you. And then you win an Olympic gold, and oh, why do you want to be a professional world champion? Because there are going to be pros that will beat you. They have Olympic medals too, but they're better than you, so you'll never reach it to the world title. And then you win a world title, and they say, you're undisputed cruiserweight champion. They're still saying, no, you can't go up to heavyweight. You're not big enough. These heavyweights they're just too big, too strong, too powerful. And you know, Oleksandr Usyk, I'm sure, has received a lot of that, but he just carries on going forward, and it shows the professional mindset. And he says these are the opinions of people who couldn't do it themselves. And yeah, that's usually the case. People who not only can't pursue it themselves, but they're usually people who they don't have anything going on in their lives. They don't have any pursuits of their own. They don't have anything that they're trying to achieve. They just kind of just flow through life, not achieving anything, not having any dreams or any aspirations. Just going through life, day after day, menial, just going with the flow, going with the wind. And you have to put yourself out there to be one of the greatest. And I feel like that's what Oleksandr Usyk has done. And many of his contemporaries have done it as well. But the way Oleksandr Usyk has conducted himself throughout the course of his career, you know, all of his most meaningful fights have taken place in the backyard of his opponents. So he's gone there with 100% belief in his ability and, physical abilities, mental ability to get the win against the odds in very even matchups in the guy's home territory. You could say that, the Joshua rematch wasn't in the UK, even though the first fight was. But Joshua, could you say he was somewhat established in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East? You know, he's certainly more established there than Oleksandr Usyk was, and he still won. So Oleksandr Usyk never messed around in his career. Always just gone straight for the jugular. He's like, I fight this guy, I fight him on this date. Yeah, you want to fight at home? That's fine, I'll travel. Has gloves, we'll travel, you know? And he's still undefeated, undisputed cruiserweight champion, now unified heavyweight champion. That speaks for itself. And, you know, people want to pretend that, a bit of a tangent, but they want to pretend that Anthony Joshua is like some kind of garbage fighter just because he lost to Oleksandr Usyk, which is silly. It's silly, it's reactionary. Yeah, Joshua lost twice convincingly to Oleksandr Usyk, but Usyk's probably the greatest cruiserweight in history. I certainly have him as greatest cruiserweight in history, above Evander Holyfield. But obviously Holyfield went up to heavyweight and had an all-time great career up there as well. But Usyk is on his way, I feel. He's really had an exemplary career so far. And, you know, if more fighters conducted themselves in the same way, boxing would be a very interesting place. Very interesting. But he talks about being like a samurai and saying that he doesn't have an aim, he just has a path. I think Oleksandr Usyk does have an aim. I think he definitely wants to become undisputed champion. But you can kind of see how it's almost like he's not trying to put pressure on himself. He's just like, you know, this is my path, and I'm going to follow my path, and wherever it takes me, I'm happy with. It's kind of being in love with the process and taking it for what it is. You know, because sometimes when you can be so transfixed on the end goal, you kind of see all the things that you have to go through. You kind of see the process as a bit of a chore. Whereas sometimes if you have an idea of where you're going, you have a pathway, and you focus on the process, you love the process, it can make things a bit more enjoyable. And that's just how I interpret it, kind of. And he, of course, says he's boxing for everyone who is defending his country right now, in the memory of the warriors who are no longer with us, and the people of his country who want to be free and stand against those who are looking to conquer. And now this is, of course, a bit more of a political, a current political topic, which I'm not going to talk explicitly about for obvious reasons, but it's still meaningful because you put things into perspective. Like I was thinking about Oleksandr Usyk, who's a good friend of Oleksandr Usyk. He made his comeback recently after being out of the ring for 3 years, and it seemed like he was pretty happy in retirement, at least in terms of getting away from boxing, because he had that fight against Beterbiev, lost quite badly. He was complaining of headaches, went to the doctor, and it seemed like he was a bit shaken up because of what happened to Adonis Stevenson, where Adonis Stevenson's career was cut short, and was really lucky to still have his health intact and still be alive today. And I feel like these were all factors that played a part in Oleksandr Usyk calling it a day in boxing. But then this whole thing in their home country has unfolded, this very sad situation, situation that's been going on for a long time, but has really made it to the forefront of the news today. When I say today, I mean, the past year, recent times. And you have to imagine for natives of that country, like Oleksandr Usyk and Oleksandr Usyk, it puts things into perspective, because boxing is a warrior sport. It is combat, it's conflict, but it's controlled relative to conflicts in life. And they must see, or must have known, people who they were close to, or friends of friends, families of friends, maybe even family of their own, who are now, have lost their lives through this conflict going on in their country. And it's like, you know what? Boxing it's nothing in comparison to this. It's just a sport, So there are people in my country who are really going to battle. They are real warriors. And I can only hope to live up to that standard. So you know what? I'm going to make a return to boxing, because, as I say, boxing is just a sport. It's nothing I can't conquer. I've got my countrymen on the front lines who don't know if they're going to make it back to their families. Whereas I have the privileged position of pursuing the sport that I love, getting paid a handsome amount, getting to live my dreams. All of a sudden, boxing becomes a lot easier. And so I'm not trying to say that that is the mindset of Usyk and Usyk, but I can see how it would be. All of a sudden, boxing doesn't seem so daunting. I'm sure it's not that daunting to these guys, because they're very high level, consummate professionals, believe in themselves wholeheartedly, I'm sure. But now they can go to another level where they're just like, this is just boxing. This is just boxing, and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So Oleksandr Usyk going up against Tyson Fury, this giant 6'9", undefeated, held all the belts at different times. Tyson Fury, everybody, or a lot of people picking Fury to beat Oleksandr Usyk, and he's like, you know what? I believe in myself. I have the ability. I've shown I have the ability in the past, but now there are much more important things on the line. National prides, looking to give a boost to my countrymen back home who are involved in real conflict, conflicts with real consequences. Not to say that boxing is without consequence, but it's all relative. So some interesting things said by Oleksandr Usyk. This is a bit of a longer video, nearly 20 minutes, but I hope you guys have enjoyed it. This is just my 2 cents, this is my interpretation after all. Feel free to disagree. Let's keep it respectful though, because it seems whenever you mention Tyson Fury in a video, you get some people who just are incensed at the fact that you can even give Tyson Fury's opponents a chance of beating him. But at the end of the day, it's boxing, it's sport, and let's try and enjoy it. So leave your perspectives in the comment section below, if you'd be so kind. You can agree with me, you can disagree with me. Let's just keep it intelligent, let's keep it respectful. And I guess I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.